All right. We are live here this morning. Good morning, everybody. Can we get a little bit of light going on here? A little bit lighter. All right. Awesome. Welcome to the Deluxe Premarket Rundown here for April 17th, 2023. This being our daily session where we go over all the important news, notes, mindset necessary to remaining consistently profitable here across these crazy markets. I am your host, Adam Holland, stock options expert market strategist, and we're here to dive into the important notes for today, of which there are a lot of, right? We got a lot of stuff going on. Can we get a focus in camera? It's Monday morning. We're trying to start off strong. Hope everybody had a nice, there we go. Had a nice restful and restorative weekend. Weekend kind of busy for me, full of ups and downs for me, but overall we ended up making it to Monday, and I'm excited to take on another week. As always, got in, some form of morning routine this morning, was so important before you go into markets to make sure that your mindset, which is the lens through which you perceive opportunity, your mindset is in that state to be able to snap up opportunity when it comes along, right? And on Monday, we actually cover what we expect out of the week ahead. We lay the groundwork for the whole week, which is super pivotal, right? The Monday pre-market rundown is the most important, or pre-market prep, right? I guess since I changed the name. The Monday pre-market prep is super important, the most important of the week, because it lays the groundwork for the whole rest of the week, right? When we talk about what we have in terms of data in the week ahead, in terms of earnings reports in the week ahead, all of that gets covered on Monday. So it's very, very, very important whether you watch it live or via replay, that you know what's going on, on that Monday session. So excited to dive into what we have going on today. As always, we're looking to do one session, one thing by the end of this session. That's get 1% better, right? We're not looking to change the world or, make it to Mars or anything like that. We're just looking to get 1% better. If you can do that, then you had a successful session, right? You had a successful day. And if you compound those, you have successful weeks, months, years, and you close the gap between who you are and who you've always wanted to be, right? So today is pivotal. Each day moving forward is pivotal, but it's not super high tension because you only have to aim to get 1% better, right? So make sure you comment one in the chat, whether you're watching live or via replay, signifying your intention to get 1% better by the end of this session, right? Make it known, widely declare it. And then that way, right, when that opening bell rings, you're ready to, have the rubber meet the road and execute from that standpoint as well. But we're going to start off with our news pertaining to the week ahead, and then we're going to get into our more Monday-specific news. So earnings season picks up serious steam in the final full week of April, with a host of bank earnings following Friday's opening salvo of positive prints from JP Morgan, ticker JPM, Wells Fargo, ticker WFC, and Citi, ticker C. In particular, the beleaguered I was never quite sure how to pronounce that word. The beleaguered regional banks will be up to bat with Bank OZK, ticker OZK, Zion's Bank Corporation, ticker Zion, and others expected to complement reports from bigger banks like Bank of America, ticker BAC, Goldman Sachs, ticker GS, and Morgan Stanley, ticker MS. So elsewhere, investor favorites Netflix, Lockheed Martin, Johnson & Johnson, and of course Tesla are expected to post quarterly updates. So that's super important. I'll likely throw an earnings calendar up on my story, but we have a number of companies reporting this week. I think Netflix reports tomorrow. Lockheed Martin reports this week, which is a big player in the defense sector. Johnson & Johnson, and then of course Tesla, right? Household name. So this is really where we get kind of the big household names kicking things off. Netflix and Tesla always report earlier than everything else. Netflix used to be sort of like forerunner for the other tech companies. Now I'm not sure Netflix is considered in the same regard as the other ones, right? FANG. A lot of people put Microsoft up there. A lot of people put NVIDIA up there, right? So a lot of people have a lot of different acronyms for the top tech stocks, but Netflix no longer really considered one of them, even though they have been doing, great things lately in order to kind of help their fall from grace. They definitely had a little bit of a trip up yesterday with their Love is Blind reunion, which I guess was supposed to be aired live, and it wasn't, and a bunch of people were angry about that. So on the economic front, though, housing data will be the focal point a week after inflation and retail sales take center stage. NAHB housing index data, housing starts, and existing home sales are all expected to be updated during the week, offering a picture of the housing market amid a rising rate environment. Mortgage rate and application data will also be provided by the Mortgage Bankers Association in midweek. Outside of housing, unemployment and PMI data is also anticipated on Thursday and Friday, respectively, each of which could serve to inform Fed decision-making ahead of its blackout period, which begins on Saturday. So all in all, it's sounding like, to be honest, there's not much economic data due this week. Let me see here. Let's also check our economic calendar over on Market Watch just to double check what we got going on here. So we've got Empire State Manufacturing at 8:30 a.m. today. Housing starts at 8:30 tomorrow. Yeah, it's really not looking like anything impactful, to be honest, until Thursday, where we get initial jobless claims again. So we get more jobless claims data. That's really going to be the major piece of data. Yeah, I mean, we get S&P Flash U.S. Manufacturing PMI on Friday, but really it's going to be earnings this week, right? Earnings, and then we get jobless claims on Thursday, and that's really going to be kind of the biggest piece of pre-market data. So we're back to kind of slowing down in terms of economic data, but we're picking up in terms of earnings. So that's going to be the big thing. Number one, that's super key to playing earnings weeks is making sure that if you are in a trade, right, and there is another company within that sector that you're, exploiting a trade in, you need to be aware of that if they're having earnings, right? Because you could go in and say, oh, I've got calls on Coca-Cola, and then Pepsi has earnings and Pepsi's earnings is bad, and then the whole sector drops. So your Coca-Cola trade could get disrupted by the fact that Pepsi did badly on earnings, right? So when we talk about Netflix's earnings can affect Disney, right? Sometimes they've been inversely related. When Netflix does worse, Disney does better, right? But it depends. Is that news pertaining to the streaming sector as a whole, or just is it localized to Netflix and bad for Netflix and, in tandem better for its competitor, Disney Plus? So it's one of those things where just be aware of things that are happening, right? Notice that there are a lot of different moving parts. And we're not in the heat of earnings week because that's when we get the tech earnings, right? That's going to be the big data, right? That's where everybody's going to be kind of looking and wondering what's going on. We're just getting our feet in the water, but it is important, right, to make sure that again you're just mindful of during earnings weeks to pay attention to if companies related to companies you're trading have earnings, because that's something they can sneak up on you. Now, on the economic front, let's see here. We covered kind of the blackout period. All right, in terms of some earnings spotlights, we've got Charles Schwab, who reports today. That's ticker SCHW. We've got M&T Bank, ticker MTB, and then a few other banks. And Tuesday, April 18th, looks like Netflix, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Silvergate Capital, Bank of New York Mellon, also Lockheed Martin and Johnson & Johnson. So Tuesday is looking like the packed day where we've got Netflix, Bank of America, Goldman, et cetera, et cetera. I'd expect Goldman to kind of have a similar response to JP Morgan. Again, if you play any earnings plays, make sure you be fine flushing that money down the toilet. But I expect Goldman to have kind of a similar reaction to JP Morgan, which is, with it being a larger bank, people leaving smaller banks, smaller regional banks in order to join JP Morgan. So they might have seen an inflow, of new money, right, of deposits with people trying to move to bigger, safer banks. Silvergate Capital has had a lot of like negative news come out. Lockheed Martin, of course, with the war that's going on and, increased defense bolstering, by other countries and, new countries joining NATO. Lockheed Martin, I'd say has positive overall fundamental sentiment heading into earnings, right? So when I say fundamentals, I mean like, it's like if all of America was obese and McDonald's was reporting earnings, it's like, well, all of, America's obesity rate is significantly increased. That's probably looking good for McDonald's earnings, right? That's just kind of like an example. It's the same thing with kind of where we are globally. Lockheed Martin is kind of set up in a good spot when it comes to defense because we are using a lot of weapons, sending a lot of weapons out, and a lot of weapons are being requested. Looks like Lockheed Martin also has a bull flag on the weekly, so Lockheed Martin can really explode from where it is now if it, kind of closes the week above that 500 level. So if Lockheed Martin closes the week above that 500 level, it could definitely explode from there. So it'll be very interesting to see kind of what goes down with LMT, right, with Lockheed. They haven't necessarily been a huge mover on earnings in the past, right, which has been like a little annoying. Like on the day of, there's not typically like any huge gap or anything like that, but it'll just be important to keep an eye out, right? This is something where defense is a sector that is getting a lot of positive fundamental forces because of the war that's going on, because of the global tension that we have with China, et cetera, right? So this is definitely going to be Lockheed Martin. Could be something to keep an eye on this week, considering the fact that it is coiled up. And if we get that last major push, it could really start to go. Let's see here. In terms of Wednesday earnings spotlight, we've got Tesla who reports. That's the big wig that reports that day. We've also got Morgan Stanley that reports, U.S. Bank Corp, and then a number of other banks. Ally Financial reports, Citizens Financial Group, Zion Bank Corporation. Also American Airlines. So American Airlines does report as well. So that is kind of another big household name that reports on Wednesday. Thursday, we've got AT&T, ticker T as in Tom. We've got Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. That'll be important as we, kind of can get a deeper look behind kind of what's happening. As of right now, Taiwan literally encircled by ships and fighter jets and all of that from China. So Taiwan Semiconductor might, kind of let people know what's happening or what they're thinking, or they might not. Who knows? I know that, Warren Buffett did sell their stake. I don't know if he fully divested, but he did sell some, and it was pretty much surrounding the whole China circumstance. So he's not seeing anything good, and it looks like he's positioning himself for war based off of the positions that he's taking in his portfolio. So we'll see. But Taiwan Semiconductor, we'll get some information kind of looking behind the curtains for them and what they expect. Union Pacific, that's a railroad operator. They report on Thursday. Railroads, it seems like every single train nowadays has been tumbling over like Humpty Dumpty. So maybe we get some insight on Union Pacific, but overall, I feel like not positive sentiment surrounding railroads. And then Friday, we get Procter and Gamble, household name, right? And that's really the only big one that we have on Friday, other than Biogen, ticker BIIB. But we're starting to see, right, earnings season really kick up. Household names start to report. So make sure that you tread lightly out there, right, when it comes to if you're playing earnings, right? Don't put your whole portfolio into earnings at all. In terms of crypto news, we also have some crypto news here. Crypto Watch, multiple speeches are expected during the week from Fed governors with respect to crypto and digital currencies. Governor Michelle W. Bowman will offer a speech entitled Considerations for a Central Bank Digital Currency at the Soros Center for Financial Markets and Policy event at Georgetown University on Tuesday afternoon. Her speech will be followed on Wednesday by the participation of Fed Governor Christopher J. Waller in a conference entitled, quote, Cryptocurrency and the Future of Global Finance at the University of Florida. So there will be some speeches going on around crypto, around the future of crypto, maybe around the regulation of crypto that are coming up this week as Bitcoin has been kind of fighting to maintain that 30K level. In terms of moving into our Monday specific news here, so we can keep our time tight and stay nice and ready at the starting line here for that opening bell. Top news is .ai. So the competition for AI dominance is heating up as the world's biggest tech giants go all in on an area that will impact every product across every company. I did that because it's in quotes, but that is true. I'm not being facetious. AI is the biggest thing, the biggest technological development since the invention of the internet, or antibiotics. Pretty much the car, the locomotive engine, fire, right? That's where we're at with all this. That's the opinion, that quote, that's the opinion of Google CEO Sundar Pichai, who hastily released the company's chatbot called Bard in March after Microsoft poured billions of dollars into ChatGPT maker OpenAI. Quote, overnight reports also suggest that Samsung may turn to AI-powered Bing. That is important, right? Because as we go into pre-market, those are two tickers that we have on the docket here based off of that news. I noticed that they were moving pre-market, just poking around, checking different stocks. And then I was like, and then I went on my phone and I saw the headlines. And apparently Samsung, right, huge company, right, huge company, is looking at replacing Google with Bing, right? Microsoft owns Bing. Bing is now integrated with ChatGPT. So Bing, which has historically sucked for a long time, now suddenly becomes an Einstein, right? Because it's integrated with ChatGPT. So that is important. Google has the possibility here. It looked like it was testing it. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but it was testing an hourly double top in pre-market, and it might still open around that area. So that 104.02 area on Google, right? That 104 area on Google We lose that on the hourly, Google can sell off in this hourly double top, right? Because of this negative news that it's gotten regarding speculation, right? So we'll see if that speculation ends up being true. We also have Microsoft that's up, over last week's hourly high right here, pre-market. So we got positive sentiment for Microsoft, negative sentiment for Google here as we go into Monday morning's bell. So those are two tickers to keep your eye on as we open up. That doesn't mean that one's going to rocket and one's going to fall. It just means that there's a higher probability and there's fundamental forces behind those things if they do occur. Right now, let's see here. The developing industry isn't limited to chatbots, with calls to pause many AI tools until new safety standards for the technology are in place, such as regulations for the economy, laws to punish abuse, and international treaties to make artificial intelligence safe for the world. Yeah, I mean, regulation has to come, right? And regulation has to come in some shape or form. I've had a number of talks about this from people who work in tech companies, right, involved with AI and things like that. Even though they're full fledged, they love the technology. They also agree that regulation has to happen. I don't know if you guys heard, but also over the weekend or maybe before the week ended, um, someone dropped a his name is Ghostwriter on TikTok, but he dropped a Drake song featuring The Weeknd that was completely created by AI. But the song is actually like really good and really catchy, and I was playing it over the weekend. So it's just one of those things where it's like, where is the line drawn? Who's getting sued? A Universal Music Group is petitioning all of these streaming platforms to take down AI created music. And Universal, has a lot of sway. They're a huge, huge, huge group in the entertainment industry. So, but it just speaks to kind of the craziness and the fast pace at which stuff is developing and how important it is to stay on top of it. There's also been new scams that are being run. So for everybody who hasn't heard, right, they're using this same AI voice technology in order to clone the voices of like people's loved ones, and then like sending the messages like, "Hi, like I was kidnapped, like please help me, like send $1 million to this routing number, da da da." Right. So again, guys, just be aware of all the different scams that are happening. It seemed like when I had clones of, and I probably will continue to have kind of scam accounts of my Instagram account made. Like, yes, they can have followers. Yes, they can make comments. Right, they're fake followers. They go out and buy the followers, but you have to understand, kind of keep up with the scam game because it develops. Right, as technology develops, scamming also develops. Right, and it gets better. So for everybody out there, right, make sure you're double checking with people. If you get a mysterious phone call from your family member and they're like, "I'm in debt. I'm too 20K in debt," like ask them some question that only you two would know the answer to, right? Just make sure you keep your head on a swivel, just on a general, like humanitarian note here, because, a lot of amazing stuff is happening, but just like when a lot of great stuff happens, like a lot of bad stuff happens, right? So just make sure that you're aware of that, right? You're not falling prey to any of this. If your cousin calls and asks for money, make sure you call your cousin, back and say, "Hey, this is the number I have you down on. Like, do you actually have a new number? Do you actually need money or no?" And depending on the cousin, it really might be a real call, right? we all we all know that can be the case. But just throwing that out there. So, quote: "Is society prepared for what's coming?" Here's another quote. "On one hand, I feel no, because the pace at which we can think and adapt as societal institutions compared to the pace at which the technology evolving, there seems to be a mismatch." Pichai told CBS's 60 Minutes. So this is Google CEO talking to 60 Minutes, and it's true, right? Right now, things are developing way too quickly for any humans to keep up, which is tough. Quote: "On the other hand, compared to any other technology, I've seen more people worried about it earlier in its life cycle and worried about the implications." So, knowledge workers could face the biggest disruption from future AI technologies, he added, and could unsettle professions like writers, accountants, architects, and even software engineers. Yeah, those seem to be the ones that are most at risk here, jobs, in terms of kind of AI immediately disrupting them: writers, accountants, architects, software engineers, but also doctors. Right, we're seeing it being able to detect a lot of different things that doctors weren't very good at detecting. Right, um, so it's a lot of professions across the board. That's why, regardless of where you are, who you work for, what position you are in, learn how to use these tools. Start messing around with them, right? It's very, very important for you to start messing around with these tools now so that you use them to make yourself indispensable by the time they've made your position dispensable, right? If you're an accountant right now, use AI to magnify how much work you can get done, so that by the time AI comes to take your job, you are an executive, right? I'm not an accountant anymore. I hire those people, right? Use it to leverage you forward instead of sitting there and saying, oh man, in 2 years, my job could be gone. That's like that's how many days, right? 365 days times two. I can't do mental math. That's like 800 days, though. You have like 800 days to do something about it, and you're sitting here, you're just gonna sweat for 800 days. No, get on OpenAI, get on ChatGPT, right? Start messing around, seeing what's going on. Go on Instagram, type AI into the search bar, and follow a bunch of accounts relating to AI. Right? Like if you're scared about your job getting lost, use this tool now to catapult yourself forward. That's all there is to it, right? That's all there is to it. You're not going to sit there and say, oh man, well, I ran a horse and buggy company and then cars come along. Use that horse and buggy money to buy some cars, right? It's the same exact thing. You don't have to sit there and say, woe is me. Everything's changing so fast. Change with it. You already spend a ton of money staring at your phone screen, right? Most people, you already spend a ton of time staring at your phone screen. You might as well do it in a way that benefits you, right? Where you're learning. So throw a 7 in the chat if you're determined to not get left behind, to use all these tools to help you push forward, move forward, right? Very important. Yeah, in terms of doctors, yeah, most definitely doctors. Because doctors, like I have a lot of friends who are doctors who are becoming doctors. I have friends who are nurses. I have friends who they had a pet with an issue and no veterinarians could identify what the issue was. And ChatGPT narrowed it down to 3 things. And the thing that it said was most probable ended up being the correct issue, right? So when we talk about taking in data, a lot of times like you nailing down the correct medical issue is just you pouring over different potential cases and matching them, saying, okay, what are the similarities, right? If I'm detecting cancer, what are the similarities between cancer that was caught earlier and cancer that was caught later? An AI can pour over thousands of images in seconds, right? So at that point, yes, like even doctors, right? A lot of professions where you might go to school for a long period of time, suddenly there's really not much need for you, right? And at the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of doctors don't have good bedside manners. So when you have someone like ChatGPT who can kind of locate what's wrong with you very quickly, but also can talk to you in a way that's very nice and humane, instead of we have all had to deal with doctors where you go in and they kind of look down on you for even questioning them because their you know immaculate intelligence is just so overwhelming compared to ours that we shouldn't even question them, right? So it's just there are a lot of professions that this is disrupting. But again, there's no reason to be scared, no reason to be afraid. Just get out there, start working, start applying, right? Start moving, and you'll be fine, right? It's just like any other technology in the world ever. So let's see here in terms of what we have next. There's no doubt the companies are on the brink of something big in terms of artificial intelligence, but it's also important to separate hype from reality when talking about any emerging technology. There has been a lot of talk about the sentience of chatbots and the genesis of new humanity, as well as an end to privacy and personal liberty, or the quick demise of entire industries. There are also countless AI startups that are looking to play up the news cycle for valuable sources of funding and even capitalize on investment from the public sector in terms of defense and national security. Yeah, there's like a ton of obviously stocks that are, I mean, there was like some AI stock that crashed last week because it was just running off the hype, and it turns out that they have nothing substantive in terms of like their AI research. So, whenever there is, a lot of focus, a lot of euphoria, a lot of news coverage around something, there's going to be bad actors. So just be aware of that as well. In terms of commentary, Ironside Research explores why Google was smart to let Microsoft launch its AI first, while Deep Tech Insights says AI is even 3 times larger than ChatGPT. Meanwhile, Investing Group's leader Samuel Smith calls out 3 AI stocks that are poised to win over the next decade, and Luckbox magazine explains how to add AI to your portfolio. At the end of the day, it ends up being the same big players that were already going to win, right? I feel like everybody always looks for yeah, like Sharon said, they sure don't. Sad to say. Yeah, I had, I'm not even going to go down the rabbit hole that I had, dealing with the dentist, dealing with different doctors, where I'm just like, look, I can't wait for AI to take over and figure out a number of things, that doctors have been unable to figure out. But yeah, in terms of like real stocks, right? Microsoft, Amazon, it's always going to end up being the big players. Sometimes it ends up being small players, but what happens to small players? They get swallowed up by big players. OpenAI, right? Microsoft invested $10 billion in them, right? Or however many billions it was. I can't remember if it was 10 or 100, who knows with Microsoft. But as of right now, Microsoft is head over heels the leader, right? Head over heels the leader. They have more iterations than just ChatGPT 3.5. In the time period that it took them to drop 3.5 and 4, they already had 4 in the chamber, right? There's something when you're dropping products called an MVP, a minimum viable product. That was their minimum viable product. They have at least 2 to 3 iterations in the future of what that is. So with how advanced ChatGPT 3.5 is, what do you think they're actually sitting on, right? Probably something insanely world changing, right? So when we look at Microsoft, you don't need to go out and be like, oh, what's that AI startup, that I want to get this penny stock in. No, man, no. Take your money, multiply it trading options, and buy a bunch of a stock that they're going to handle it the right way. They already have the best product and they're going to push it forward, right? A lot of times we're looking for the next big thing, but the next big thing is what was already big. And for some people that ends up being groundbreaking information, right? Because they're like, I need to be looking at, like C3.ai, and a lot of people are just talking about like all these different stocks and like, oh, this is going to be the next one, and this is going to be the next one. Look, man, there's nothing out there right now that even holds a candle to ChatGPT. So Microsoft is so far ahead of all these other companies, and I don't think they could have thrown out that money fast enough. In terms of commodities here, shifting away from AI news, grain drain, Poland and Hungary have banned imports of grain from Ukraine, as well as its transit through their countries, despite a warning from the EU that the unilateral actions would go against the bloc's trade policy. So this is significant. The move by the two countries seeks to protect their farmers, which have staged protests in recent months due to a grain glut and crashing prices. Soon after Russia invaded Ukraine, the EU scrapped tariffs and quotas on Ukrainian grain imports, seeking to help the country that wasn't able to export its product due to logistical problems caused by the war and blocked Black Sea ports. Poland's ban is set to last until the end of June, but with another grain export deal between Ukraine, Turkey, Russia, and the United Nations up in the air, grain markets could see some renewed volatility. So overall, right, we got grain markets here that are under the microscope. We can see grain prices starting to go up because at this point, a few countries, Poland included, are saying, hey, we are not allowing Ukrainian grain to come through here anymore. We're banning the imports and we're not allowing the transit, which is even, more important in some regards, to come through our country. So Poland and Hungary, that's very important, right? You can look up kind of some companies, some tickers that are related to grain, related to wheat, right? That might see some positive sentiment because of this. It'll be speculative, but of course, you got to make sure you can go in there, look at the charts, break the charts down, right? If you can't look at a chart and break it down, in 30 seconds or less, see if there's short-term, medium-term, long-term opportunity. You need to make sure that you book that, discovery call at the link in bio so we can talk about the resources that I have available to you in order to help you do that, right? So on the Instagram bio, you can do that. If you're already in the course you're going through, then that's not for you, right? If you're already learning, right, then just follow the steps, right? Learn bit by bit, piece by piece, until you turn into a market powerhouse. But for my people who are like, Adam, I have no idea, I've just been here for the pre-market rundown or the pre-market prep, make sure you book that call because there's tons of resources from $0 all the way up to, the full-blown mastermind program that you could be involved in. And there's something for everybody, but you got to take that first step, right? Have to execute. Now, in terms of stocks that are on the move, M&A Monday, Prometheus Biosciences, ticker RXDX, is up 70% in pre-market trade after Merck agreed to buy the clinical stage biotech focused on immunology for $200 per share in cash, indicating a total equity value of nearly $10.8 billion. Prometheus advances late-stage studies for ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, as well as other autoimmune conditions. The agreement with Prometheus will accelerate our growing presence in immunology, where there remains substantial unmet patient need, noted Merck CEO Robert Davis. Seeking Alpha's quant ratings raised its outlook on Prometheus from hold to strong buy only 2 weeks ago. So Seeking Alpha tooting their own horn there. So that's just, in that kind of biotech space, big pharma space, that happens, right? You have a bunch of random biotechs that shoot up and drop down based off of news. So right now, Merck, kind of adding more assets to the fold. In this case, when it comes to Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. So hopefully, this treatment also helps those people, right? I know you guys probably know a number of people with Crohn's and stuff like that, just very uncomfortable, very tough condition to deal with. So hopefully, this ends up helping them, of course. But, with Prometheus Biosciences, RXDX up 70%, I don't know if like that's something worth looking at here. Especially it's one of those things where I doubt that it is optionable. Um, but overall, right, looks like you got a big gap up there. Yeah, we closed at around what was that, 110 last week. We're opening up near 200 bucks today. So yeah, I'm sure somebody who got early news of that is probably waking up to a nice big insider trading bag this morning, right? Somebody whose uncle worked on the deal and texted the family group chat like, look, buy RXDX, and then on Monday cash the heck out, because that's just the world that we live in. Now, in terms of events, trial delay, the landmark trial between Fox News, ticker FOX, and Dominion Voting Systems, the voting machine company suing the network for $1.6 billion in damages for defamation, was set for a high-profile start today, but at the 11th hour was delayed until tomorrow. So media reports suggest that Fox is making a late push to settle the case after a number of pretrial losses. I mean, that's what happens when you talk crap you don't have facts to back it up. And this is for either news station, right? For any news station, whether it's Fox, whether it's, what's the Democratic one? I always forget. CNN, whether it's Fox, whether it's CNN, whoever it is, right? When you just start Fox talking about the voting system, because these voting machines are rigged and they're faulty and this and that, like you're dragging a publicly traded company through the mud. If you have no evidence to back this up, you're just, baiting for headlines. You're going to get taken to court. And that's what's happening to Fox right now. So it looks like they're trying to settle. They're like, please don't take this to court, right? Because at that point, it gets publicized. It gets laid out that, they're lying. And then, you get even worse repercussions from that. So the case is likely to test long-held notions of media law and include a star-studded witness list that may include Fox hosts Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, Maria Bartiromo, and even Fox chief Rupert Murdoch. Dominion has accused Fox News of issuing false claims that it worked to rig the 2020 election in favor of President Biden. And executives have said that they won't settle without a broad apology from Fox that it aired false information about the company. I don't blame you. Air them out, right? You want to talk crap on me, make sure you bring some receipts or keep that to yourself. In terms of today's markets, it's a mixed bag across the board, but more green than red. In Asia, Japan up 0.1%, Hong Kong up 1.7%, China up 1.4%, India down 0.9%, the FTSE in London up 0.4%, Paris flat, Frankfurt flat. Looking like a lot flat across the board. Dow up 0.1%, basically flat. S&P up 0.1%, NASDAQ up 0.1%. Crude oil down 0.4%, gold up 0.3%, Bitcoin down 1.5% to just under 30K, 29.868. And then today's economic calendar, we got to remember the Fed barking, speaking at noon. Housing market index at 10 a.m., but nothing big. What else is happening? We'll finish up here with our rapid fire bullet point rundown. To Mars and beyond, SpaceX, ticker SPACE, set for debut flight of Starship rocket. That'll be important and cool to see. Sega Sammy to acquire maker of Angry Birds. Tech Resources, ticker TECK, approached by miners to explore metal deals. Streaming glitch, Netflix keeps Love is Blind fans waiting. JP Morgan's ticker JPM, JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon, and their ticker is JPM, sees some banks tightening lending and credit. I think so, right? I think that would be appropriate, to say the least. Following Tesla, ticker TSLA. Xpeng, ticker XPEV, to cut costs with new platforms. So Xpeng, I think they're a Chinese company, but they make electric vehicles, so they're looking to also cut costs. Upside, Deutsche Bank calls this U.S. airline a sector outperformer. Hitting guidance, Chipotle's store expansion is still going strong. Chipotle, really just a powerhouse. Making me kind of hungry. Man, I have to run across the street to the mall today, get some Chipotle for lunch. Assassination attempt, second attack on a Japanese leader in less than a year. Dang, I mean, it's just craziness going on all over the world right now, right? But overall, right, we can still continue to rise above, continue to make sure that we're banding together, and we're curating an environment, that is conducive to all of us winning, to all of us pushing forward, to all of us continuing to leverage our money in order to create more, right? Create more money in order to maintain our own financial vitality, right? But also beyond just trading news, this is good news to take into account just as like a human who's looking to be a good mom, dad, boss, employee, aunt, uncle, brother. You know what I mean? Like if you have someone who's struggling, you're like, hey, I actually found out about this AI tool. They can actually make your job a lot easier while you're going through this, right? Somebody who has a family member that's struggling with something, health-wise, like, oh, I actually found this tool that can help you still do your job, right? Those are the cool things that you get that are byproducts of being here and being in the right environment, right? So just drop a 6 in the chat if you're excited to be here, to be a part of this community. I am, right? I'll go ahead and I'll drop a 6 in there because it also keeps me accountable and keeps me on my toes, right? It keeps me constantly pushing, moving forward, making sure that I'm not being left behind in a world that moves very quickly. There's no reason to be scared because each and every day I'm going to sleep a little bit better than I woke up, right? That's all you can hope for. So I appreciate you guys for popping in here, investing in yourself. As always, if you got even one positive piece of information from this session, just show love to the account, right? The Instagram, reels, the shorts, all that good stuff. Throw some comments, some fire emojis. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, but that helps me continue to work, continue to grow, continue to push, and to provide the best possible. Can we get a this thing does not like me looking at myself. I feel like they have an automatic vanity blur where if you watch yourself, it will blur it out. But yeah, just show love to the accounts, right? I appreciate it. I appreciate all of it. The comments, the love. Also, make sure you're watching those reels because there is good information that's dropped, right? Information you can immediately plug in to your trading system. So make sure you're keeping up with that. We got fresh, free education dropping each and every day. So again, just show love to that, and I'll continue to show up here for the free to make sure that we keep this community strong. Right. So everybody have a great rest of your day. We're about to have a great week. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning for our next pre-market rundown. Have a good one.